Okay, so this video, it's a bit nerdy, but I think it's really important. I think it's hugely important. And it is about what I believe to be the key benefits of peer-to-peer technology. Okay, so I'll just say a few points about peer-to-peer technology just so that anyone new to this channel understands what I'm talking about. So I'll provide a very basic example of what I mean. So we've got the internet, and currently we don't communicate in a peer-to-peer fashion. We don't share information in a peer-to-peer fashion. We rely on intermediaries. So if you take Facebook, for example, as an intermediary, and we communicate, via Facebook and various other social media platforms. So this is what we would refer to as like a centralized architecture. So with peer-to-peer, what we're doing is we're cutting out all of the middlemen and we're just communicating. So a very simple example would be, let's say that I have a public folder. Okay. And you have a public folder. And I write something and put it in my public folder and I share it with you. And you have access to it. And then you can put something in your public folder and share it with me. And now we can communicate peer-to-peer. It's very simple, right? It's not that important when it comes to, private communication, because that can all be kind of encrypted end to end, and it doesn't really matter that much having intermediaries. I mean, it can be helpful if if there's harmonization and everyone's using the same chat applications, but doesn't really matter that much. You're not going to solve all that many problems having peer-to-peer private communication, but peer-to-peer public communication is very, very important. So one example of this would be, let's take the concept of a poll, or a survey, that kind of thing. So imagine, so we're a part of this peer-to-peer network, okay? I won't explain the technicalities of that right now, but let's say we're all a part of this very simple peer-to-peer network, and anyone can just ask a question. They want to find out something, they just want to find out what do people care about? What let's say, is there something that is really bothering them, about let's say their community? I mean, it could be anything. And then you just broadcast a message, just as you would if you were updating your Facebook status, and it broadcasts a message to the other peers on the network, and they can just reply. Now when they reply, their reply is stored with them. So on a peer-to-peer network, everyone is responsible for their own data, but they share their data with other people. So anyway, now you can do that. Now you can just broadcast a question without the need for any intermediary, and people, subscribers, let's say, can answer the question. It's such a simple concept, but if you really think about it, once you have that kind of infrastructure in place, you can do anything. Yeah, you can do anything. You know, you can vote on anything at all, and you don't require anybody's permission to do so. And you trust the vote because you're in control over your own data. So it's not like you don't have to concern yourself that some intermediary is going to corrupt the results. So yeah, it's a very simple concept, but there are some hurdles to get around. But I'm not going to go into that right now because I'm trying not to make this a technical video. Okay. So let's look at, in addition to being able to vote on anything, let's think about how it can benefit the internet. So first of all, web designers and web developers, okay? Now, they don't want to mess around with your data. They don't want to have to secure it and host it and any of that kind of stuff. Not unless that's their business model. So with Facebook, for example, yeah, they want your data because that's their business model. But the average web designer or web developer, they don't want your data. Not really. I mean, it's not really going to be much benefit to most web apps. And of course, think about the open source community. Open source software developers, it's hindering their ability to deliver, good software for free. Because what they can do is they can just produce software, and then you can just download the software and use it. And if you're interacting peer-to-peer, you're all in control of your own data. You're all hosting your own data. So they don't have to care about any of that kind of stuff. They don't need to host the front end or any of it. And then they can just ask you for some donations. But of course, that's not possible right now. So that means, if somebody, if web developers were to host an app, then they have to make your data their business model somehow. One way or another, they need a business model to cover the costs of hosting the data and the costs of maintaining, the security and the privacy of your information. And of course, there are regulatory issues as well. If you're responsible for large amounts of personal information, then you're probably going to be subject to some kind of regulations, such as the GDPR or whatever. There are many data protection laws, depends where you are. So, yeah. So when you allow web designers and web developers to not be responsible for your data, but instead build just the front end that interacts with your data, then you've cut out so much hassle. Yeah, because web apps have a front end and a back end, and the back end is usually huge. The front end is just a skin. It's just it's just what you see. So you can get rid of all of the back end, really, and then just build the front end. So much, much easier, much simpler, and as a result, the open source community can deliver much better software to you, for free, essentially, So think about the benefits in terms of things like dating, online dating, okay? Okay, so you've got all of these different dating apps, okay? And in most cases, you've got to pay for them. And in the situations where you don't have to pay for them, you may find, I don't know, there might be time wasters or scammers and stuff on these platforms, if it's free, you see. But it's not very helpful, is it, having all of these different platforms? What you want is just one platform, ideally. So of course, when you're peer-to-peer, that's essentially what you have. It's like it's not really a platform, because it's you can have different apps, but they're all using the same data. So you can have multiple apps, but it's the same people. It's everyone. So you'd have a profile, yeah, and then you could just select an option that says that you're single, and then anyone in the world can do a search and find everyone who's single that meets a certain criteria, and you're in control over your data, so you don't, you can switch it off. And one thing you can do is you can put a paywall in front of your contact form, because you're in control over your data. You're in control over how people interact with your data and how they interact with you. You see, so you can have a paywall in front of your contact, form on your profile. So anyone who's not in your friends list has to pay a small bit of money to contact you. So it not only eliminates spam, but it's very good for online dating, because it means that you can filter out the people who genuinely want to contact you. Yeah? I mean, if you read, somebody's profile and you thought, I really like that person, I've got a lot in common with them. Yeah, you don't mind paying a bit of money, would you? It's worth it, isn't it? Right? And you know that because they've got paid a small bit of money from you sending them a message, you know that the chances of them replying is going to be higher, isn't it? You see, so it kind of works. Having paywalls in front of contact forms is actually a pretty good way of regulating the flow of let's say, private traffic. Let's think about it as well in terms of marketing. Okay, so yeah, having a paywall in front of your contact form, yeah, it helps to reduce spam overall, but it can actually open up marketing avenues for companies. So for example, you could get paid for filling out surveys, right? Now, I think there are already some websites where you can get paid for filling out surveys. I don't know if they if you do actually get paid. I'm not sure. I don't know. Don't think I've tried it. I may have looked into it some years ago. But anyway, when you have a paywall in front of your contact form, you can actually get paid for filling out surveys, because what you can do is you can fill out surveys, and of course all of your personal data, goes in your personal data store. They don't keep it. It all goes into your personal data store, and you specify what data, into your public data store, and you specify, what is made available to people, what goes in that public data store. Okay. So then companies can do a search, and so they can say, okay, well, we're looking for people, maybe in this area that are interested in X, Y, and Z, and they can do the search and they can find people, and then they can send out a message, and pay a small bit of money. You see, so it's beneficial to them, because they know that means it's very targeted. So they know that you are very likely to be interested in their product because you've said so, yeah, and you're getting a bit of money for receiving the marketing email. It won't be a lot, but if you're getting lots of them, then yeah, a small bit of money coming in. So yeah, I mean, there are many advantages of having a paywall in front of your contact form. Of course, if you're friends with people, if if you're connected, then yeah, you can communicate for free. So yeah. So ultimately, democracy is it's not. I understand that everyone has a different understanding of what democracy means. For me, it's really just about consensus, and peer-to-peer communication allows groups of people of any size, theoretically speaking, to come to a consensus. Yeah, just like with cryptocurrencies, but peer-to-peer communication in the context of governance doesn't need to be as consistent as a currency. With a currency, you've got to make sure that if you're sending large amounts of money from one side of the world to the other, you need to make sure that it's pretty consistent. But when it's more just kind of polls and surveys and stuff, yeah, it needs to be consistent. But there can be things like timing delays. It doesn't matter, because one of the problems that cryptocurrencies solve is the double spend problem, to prevent somebody buying something from this person and then using the same funds to buy something from someone else. That's the double spend issue. You don't have to worry about that when you're just broadcasting information, you see. So yeah, we don't need anything as complicated as like say a blockchain ledger, which is the database underneath cryptocurrencies. Or doesn't have to be a blockchain, but it's that kind of thing. But yeah, with just general peer-to-peer conversation, it can be a lot simpler. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Yeah, thanks for watching.